Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda and welcome to our channel. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, the economy, as well as our money. Let's take a closer look at the massive misinformation campaign that is being promoted by many Republican senators as well as by former President Trump. Let's start with Senator John Cornyn, the Republican from Texas, who was referring to Democrats' climate goals, college and childcare initiatives. He calls them runaway spending habits. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator John Cornyn, the Republican from Texas. Let's watch.
Medicare expansion, Green New Deal era, climate initiatives, and a range of free programs that we know aren't free at all. College, childcare, you name it. To pay for these runaway spending habits, our Democratic colleagues will lean on job-killing tax increases and excessive borrowing from future generations.
Now, that's not the end of it. Let's take a look at Senator Rick Scott, the Republican from Florida. He said, and I quote, "Biden and the Democrats are living in an economic fantasy land where debt doesn't matter. Spending has no consequences and inflation is impossible." Wow. Let's roll the tape and watch this.
If you drive a car, that means Joe Biden raised your expenses $600 a year. If you drive a truck, that means Joe Biden raised your expenses by more than $1,000 a year. And let's remember, half of Americans make less than $35,000 a year. Inflation is a new tax on our families. Instead of addressing this crisis that has hurt Americans, Biden and the Democrats are living in an economic fantasy land where debt doesn't matter, spending has no consequences, and inflation is impossible. They're ignoring the fact that our nation is barreling towards $30 trillion in debt. That's $233,000 in debt for every family in America. Now Democrats in the Senate want to spend another $4 trillion of your money on a so-called infrastructure plan that has little to do with infrastructure.
And now let's take a look at Senator Ron Johnson, the Republican from Wisconsin, who takes things to a brand new level. He said, I quote, "Wouldn't you say a 15, 16, 17-year-old immigrant male would certainly fit the profile of somebody who might be in a gang?" Folks, that question in and of itself is racist. That question in and of itself is filled with prejudice, and it is what profiling is all about. Now, the Biden ICE nominee, Ed Gonzalez, replied by saying, "I'm always mindful of not profiling, so I try and look at the facts." Let's roll the tape and look at this unbelievable exchange between an elected official, Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, and President Biden's ICE nominee, Ed Gonzalez. Watch this and tell me if you've seen anything more bizarre than this lately from Ron Johnson. I say lately because Ron Johnson is well known for absolutely bizarre claims and bizarre comments. Let's roll the tape and watch.
Wouldn't you say a 15, 16, 17-year-old immigrant male would certainly fit the profile of somebody who might be in a gang or be recruited by a gang, or be used by the drug traffickers to traffic their drugs, right? I mean, don't you find that in law enforcement? It's a minor that's trafficking the drugs because they don't get put away for dozens and dozens of years because they're a minor? Isn't that what's the reality of the situation is with this flood? We are letting in people that are potentially gang members. We are letting people that are going to be trafficking drugs or human trafficking. Isn't that your experience as Houston's sheriff?
I'm always mindful of not profiling and developing any stereotypes in my work, so I try to look at the facts.
That's not profiling.
And speaking of prejudice, speaking of profiling, and speaking of misinformation, let's take a look at a comment from the White House Press Secretary, Jen Psaki. She said this: "There's about 12 people who are producing 65% of misinformation about the vaccine on social media platforms. All of them remain active on Facebook." Let's roll the tape and hear from Jen Psaki.
There's about 12 people who are producing 65% of anti-vaccine misinformation on social media platforms. All of them remain active on Facebook, despite some even being banned on other platforms, including Facebook, ones that Facebook owns.
Now let's shift gears to the Surgeon General of the United States of America, Dr. Vivek Murthy. He said, "Today, we live in a world where misinformation poses an imminent and insidious threat to our nation's health." Let's watch.
Today, I issued a Surgeon General's advisory on the dangers of health misinformation. Surgeon General advisories are reserved for urgent public health threats. And while those threats have often been related to what we eat, drink, and smoke, today we live in a world where misinformation poses an imminent and insidious threat to our nation's health.
And while we are on this subject, no episode of Ignition Time is complete without another bizarre episode involving Ted Cruz, the Republican senator from Texas. I call him Cancun Cruz because he enjoys being in Cancun more than helping his residents, his fellow citizens in Texas. He said this, I quote, "We have the highest level of illegal immigration in over 20 years. Last year, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. How did we go from incredible success to incredible failure? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris screwed this up." Hey, Ted, Cancun Cruz, it's President Biden. It's Vice President Harris. Get your facts straight, Cancun Cruz. Let's roll the tape and hear from Cancun Cruz. Let's watch.
The Biden border crisis is getting worse and worse every day. We are on pace for over 2 million people to cross illegally into this country. We have the highest level of illegal immigration in over 20 years. Last year, we had the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. How did we go from incredible success to incredible failure? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris screwed this up. It is their fault. 3 decisions. In the opening week of this administration, Joe Biden halted construction of the border wall. He reinstated the failed policy of catch and release, and most disastrously, he pulled out of the incredibly successful Remain in Mexico international agreement that had resulted in the lowest level of illegal immigration in 45 years. No state in the union is paying a bigger price for the Biden border crisis than our home state of Texas. In Texas, we are seeing the influx of humanity, and what Biden and Harris are counting on is the news media not covering it. They're counting on ABC and CBS and NBC and CNN and MSNBC not showing the Biden cages. A couple of months ago, I brought 19 senators down to the border. We saw the Biden cages, little boys and little girls crammed in at over 1,700% of their capacity. COVID positivity rates of 10%.
And while we are on the subject, let's take a look at the Texas Democrat, James Tallarico, who, by the way, is one of the youngest legislators we've ever had in the history of our country. He's a former middle school teacher, and he calls himself a proud, progressive, and 8th-generation Texan. And this is why he's someone we have to look out for, we have to watch out for in the future, because this man is a rising star. Let's take a look at this exchange between James Tallarico and an anchor on Fox News, and you'll see why the Democrat put the Fox News anchor in his place. Let's roll the tape and watch.
Someone in your district that can't get identification?
You have made a lot of money personally, and you've enriched a lot of corporations with advertising by getting on here and spewing lies and conspiracy theories to folks who trust you. And so what I'm asking you to do is to tell your voters right now that Donald Trump lost the election of 2020. At
least you resolved the lie that is Democrats are now for voter ID. It's not your show, sir, but at least you resolved the idea that Democrats are not for voter ID.
Did Donald Trump lose the election in 2020?
Real quick.
Can you answer the question? Did Donald Trump lose the election in 2020?
I'm answering questions. Don't really feel any obligation to answer anything
an uncomfortable question for you?
No, it's...
See, this is Pete, the reason
my question is, why are you in Washington, D.C. and not in...
And now let's end this with the most bizarre statement of all, a statement from former President Trump. I'll put up the statement on your screen, and then I'll highlight key aspects of the statement. This is an absolutely bizarre statement that you have to read to believe. Despite massive voter fraud and irregularities during the election, and by the way, this is something he keeps saying over and over again, he says, "I never threatened or spoke about to anyone a coup of our government." Then he talks about Miley, he talks about General Mark Miley, and he says he got his job because the world's most overrated general, James Mattis, could not stand him, had no respect for him, and would not recommend him. He said he lost respect for Miley when we walked together to St. John's Church, and he says that Miley apologized to him, and he said that Miley, in a conversation, was an advocate of changing all the names of our military forts and bases. This is a pretty bizarre comment from former President Trump, a very bizarre set of comments. In fact, here's a comment that jumps out at me. "Sorry to inform you, but an election is my form of coup. And if I was going to do a coup, one of the last people I would want to do it with is General Mark Miley." Folks, I think that former President Trump is essentially doing this to gain as much publicity as possible, keep himself relevant, while trying to stir up as much trouble as possible. And this is a common theme amongst former President Trump and amongst all the Republicans. Again, let me show you the entire statement on your screen, and I'll scroll down the statement. I'll also provide you with a tweet with a link to this statement in the description section below, so make sure you check it out. But a very bizarre set of statements, and the former president says he would not have chosen to, I quote, do a coup with Miley, and he says he elevated Miley to that position, to his position, out of spite. Absolutely unbelievable, absolutely bizarre. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. This right here, once again, is a little bit of information about me. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm, and that is your vote of confidence in all the effort that goes into this channel. I work very hard on this channel every single day, as does our entire video production team of Joseph and Jeanette. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.